So no matter what, this news is an artificial program every day to convince you that everything every day is going to make an impact in your life. And it's not. It's not going to matter. If you shut the news off for a month and something major happens, your friends are going to tell you. Your neighbors are going to tell you. You're going to get texts about it. And nothing in your life is going to be really different just because you stopped watching the news. It's the healthiest decision that a lot of people can make right now.
It's June 2025. Now, as everyone is watching the whole world fall apart into chaos, in their own countries, in other countries, their own cities even watching, literally, their country burn. For example, when you look at the so-called wildfires in Canada, which seem to happen every year now, just at the end of winter, long before they should be really going. And even when you look at, for example, what's happening in Los Angeles, California, with all the rioting and everything else, and the federal government saying we got to send in the military because it's being invaded, as a descriptive. People are paying attention to all these things, and I've said before, all these things are scripted to set the stage, to give the excuse to impose more. And I've said, learn the script. This is how you can, for example, as a descriptive, predict what's going to happen next. You can also use scripts to have individuals predictable as well. It's all a dog and pony show with smoke and mirrors. But there's something else that's going on in the world today, and I've discussed this extensively recently. And there's a war for your mind. Now, we hear, for example, people being called crazy, or even groups being called crazy. But what is crazy? Crazy is something that goes against, as a descriptive, the natural instincts of humanity, that causes actual harm to someone else or perhaps another group. Something that tells you this is wrong inside. And when you look at, for example, dare I say, the Western culture and how it's based on trust and discipline, this is now being erased, and now we see a lot of negativity happening in the Western countries. But I digress. But this war for the mind has been going on for a very, very, very long time. And what we've seen start to rise is what, as I will call as a descriptive, the fake crazy. Now, what is fake crazy? Well, fake crazy would be, for example, things that, words or actions, that don't cause actual harm. People are brainwashed to perceive harm. But we also say, for example, here, when people or even groups are deemed crazy, when they go against something that is constructed, socially constructed, call it what you will, and people who don't adhere to, for example, a belief system, say whether it be political or an ideology, they're deemed crazy because for whatever reason, the social conditioning, the social engineering, the brainwashing, the psyop didn't adhere to them. And we see these types of people being deemed crazy. The weapon being the liberal arts, theoretical pseudoscience of psychology, simply because someone is not adhering to something that is constructed. And usually these social, as a descriptive social constructs, are harmful to individuals in society and used for, as another descriptive, tyranny. They're deemed crazy. Now, the role of the liberal arts theoretical pseudoscience of psychology is to isolate individuals or even groups, but still on an individual basis, and reprogram them. For example, we see this in the movie 1984, where an individual or two characters in the movie did not conform, or they broke away from conforming with everyone else, and they were sent away. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, it was room 4, but I could be wrong. They went to be reprogrammed. Now, what is this reprogramming all about? A big tool used by the liberal arts theoretical pseudoscience of psychology, and even those pushing it, is something called gaslighting. People are gaslit into thinking, for example, that they are wrong, or what they're doing or thinking, as a better word, or even saying is wrong. And they're convinced eventually, for many people unfortunately, that they are wrong, and they conform, but there's still going to be some that refuse to conform. Now, some might appear to conform just to get away from it all, and then they become the chameleon. I said this a decade ago, surviving is being like the chameleon, just to survive life. And sometimes that's all you really have, is to be the chameleon, to survive. There's nothing wrong with that. But there's some who still stand up, and unfortunately these people feel the wrath, as a descriptive, of the system. And these people are discredited towards other individuals and society overall. So no one will pay attention to what they're saying. Let's go back to this gaslighting for a moment. The studies made famous by Julia Shaw, implanting false memories, is a form of gaslighting. And she showed how easy it is for false memories to be implanted. Now, you can tweak that, for example, with having someone conform. Hey, you're wrong. You're thinking wrong. You're saying wrong. And eventually have people conform to whatever it is. Even accepting the psyops, as a descriptive, of agendas to allow the opportunity, the excuse, by whomever in control, to impose more. And again, we see this with everything from so-called wildfires to riots in Los Angeles. And I've highlighted, for example, the so-called convoy, the protest of rubber, and this ostrich farm. And there are people really digging deep into, for example, these Los Angeles fires and everything else, and the ostrich farm in British Columbia, Canada. And what they're uncovering is, dare I say, crazy. Not the people finding the information out, but what's behind it all. Because what's behind it all does go against the natural goodness of humanity. I just wanted to give you some things to think about. Anyway, thank you for watching. Please like, subscribe, comment, and share.
And this person is starting to picture how it could have happened. And what could have been turns into what would have been, turns into what was.
So by the third interview, the memory has taken hold. And it wasn't just this once. Shaw was able to convince over 70% of participants that they committed a crime.
I was incredibly surprised at the rate that I had in terms of successfully implanting these false memories.
False memory studies like this question one of the cornerstones of the criminal justice system.
In those hundreds of cases where DNA testing has proven that these individuals were wrongly convicted, about 3/4 of the time, the convictions were based on faulty eyewitness testimony.
Listen to this and write it down if you can't remember it. You're never going to outgrow warfare. You simply must learn to fight. I hear people saying to me all the time, when is it going to get easier? When you die.